This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, April 24th, 2022, and this is our 59th session of Wandering Through the Big Book, and this is the last session we're going to do on step 11, and we're going to read this ancient pamphlet called, with the obnoxious title of How to Listen to God. And we're going to begin this meeting as we do with opening words and some readings adapted from the Big Book. Here we go. Welcome to this session of Wandering Through the Big Book. This is not a meeting of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no group conscience, no seventh tradition, no requirements for membership. Everyone is welcome. Our primary purpose is taking an in-depth look at the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, in order to deepen and strengthen our own recovery, to try to help others to do the same, and to try to become trusted servants of our fellowship. We are seeking conscious contact by trusting God, cleaning house, and helping others. And we're trying to improve that conscious contact by practicing steps 10, 11, and 12 every day, and applying the spiritual principles we are learning to the details of our ordinary day-to-day lives. We will begin this meeting, this gathering, with a moment of silence to reflect on why we are here. And now some readings. George is going to start with number 1.
I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through, and though perhaps you come to scoff, you will remain to pray. Page 0, right before page 1.
Okay, thank you, George. And Amy, number 2.
No attitude of holier than thou, no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. Page 18. And be quick to see where religious people are right. Page 87.
Thank you, Amy. And Buck, number 3.
If you are as seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe you have but 2 alternatives. One is to go on to the bitter end, blotting out your consciousness, how miserable you really are, page 25. And the other is to ask our Creator each morning in meditation to show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, page 83.
Thank you, Buck. And Anne-Marie, number 4.
Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will for us into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. Page 85.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And Robin, number 5.
Just to the extent that I humbly rely on God and do as I think God would have me do, will I be enabled to experience spiritual serenity right in the midst of human calamity, page 68. Head in the clouds and feet firmly planted on the ground. Page, I closed my chat. Page 130, I think. Page 130. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. So now I'm going to try to mute everybody and probably get everything all screwed up. Mute all. And then continue. And then do that, and boom, there you are. Okay. All right, I just want to focus for a minute on that number 4, because this is from step 10, just straight out of step 10. And you know, this is really our goal. And it's every day is a day when we must, it's not a suggestion, when we must carry the vision of God's will for us into everything we do. And we do that by asking this question, how can I best serve thee? I just think it's among our spiritual tools, one of which is the prayer for removal, relieve me of the bondage of self so I can better do thy will. Asking the question, how can I best serve thee, is a way to turn the mind around from whatever it's obsessed with, which is it, I mean, that's what we do. We're obsessed with our bodies and our minds, and this is saying substitute instead the idea of how can I serve my Creator? What do you want me to do? You know, time and time again, the answer is pause, ask and listen, and then do in accordance with what you hear. And the whole problem, and exactly what this pamphlet's going to try to talk about, is how do I hear? And when I do listen, how do I know whether it's just my ego talking or it's God talking? And it's just a fascinating pamphlet. I want to tell you a little bit about the history of it. Let's see. So some of you may know of this guy. Can I back to basics? Wally Patton. This came out in the, I think, mid '90s, and well, it doesn't matter, but it's a way of going through the steps quickly and just to get people into the process. And so this, then or I don't know what the order was, but this is the book that we're talking about today, and How to Listen to God, Overcoming Addiction Through Practice of Two-Way Prayer. This two-way is so important. I gave this book to a friend, and he thanked me in a meeting later on. I don't know what's going on today. And he said, I got this great book, How to Talk to God. And I had to go up, after the meeting and say, excuse me, it's not how to talk to God. It's how to listen to God. There's a lot of difference between talking and listening. Anyway, so these are some early pages that I've got some of the early pages from this book, and just want to skim read it for you before we start looking at the actual pamphlet. The title of the chapter, this is page 1 of How to Listen to God. And this is taking place in February of 1996. There was a period of time when I did not know how to listen to God. I only vaguely remember those dark days of hopelessness and despair, even though they accounted for nearly 50 years of my life. This is Wally Patton talking. Then I was transformed, shown how to walk in the sunlight of the Spirit. I have James Houck to thank for this conversion experience. James is 94 years old, so he's writing this in, I think he's writing this in around 2000 or 1999, and has been listening to God for more than 65 of those years. He discovered the miracle of two-way prayer in the Oxford Group, an evangelical spiritual movement that was prominent during the 1930s. He met the group on December 12, 1934, one day after Bill W., the New York City co-founder of the 12-step movement. James attended meetings with Bill from 1935 to 1937. By taking the Oxford Group's 4 steps of surrender, sharing, restitution, and guidance, James found a new way of living. These were the same steps taken by Bill W., Dr. Bob, and the first 100 who helped write the big book in 1939. So then he talks about having a phone conversation with this guy, James Houck, and then he meets him at the Bill Wilson House in East Dorset, Vermont. That's the first time they met. Wally was going to do this presentation on spiritual movements, and he invited James to come. So the first time they meet is at the Wilson House in 1996. James introduced me to a 4-page pamphlet titled How to Listen to God, and he guided me through the 4 steps as he had taken them in the mid-1930s. These steps removed the blocks which had separated me from the voice within. The How to Listen to God pamphlet was written in the late 1930s by a Columbus, Ohio Oxford Group member named John Batterson. John attended Oxford group meetings with Dr. Bob, the Akron co-founder of the 12-step movement. Even though this guide was used by thousands of people in the 1940s to establish and maintain a two-way communication with God, this important piece of spiritual literature had faded into obscurity in the subsequent decades. So then he goes on to say a bunch of stuff, but just wanted you to understand where this pamphlet comes from. So now what I'd like to do is read through the pamphlet with you. And so I'm looking at 4 pages. This came out of the study guide. If you search how to listen to God, this thing will show right up. If you just put it in the search bar, this pamphlet will show right up. You'll get a PDF, you can print it, but it's also in the study guide. And so this page 1 it says step 11, 24 pages, March 2022, page 17 of the study guide. It's also page 1. And so you might see inside the box that we're talking about 4 pages, 1 of 4 it says, and then the next page is 2 of 4, then 3 of 4, and 4 of 4. And on page 4 of 4, you'll see at the very end, written in the late 1930s by John E. Batterson. That's what he was just talking about. And then you can see distributed by Wally P., all of that stuff. Okay, so now I'm going into this thing. And what it is, it starts off with 9 fundamental points, and then it's going to shift and go to 11 specific suggestions on how to do this. And so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to talk about these 9 fundamental points and then the 11 specific things. Okay, so first sentence. These are a few simple suggestions for people who are willing to make an experiment. This notion of an experiment is a wonderful approach. I mean, what they're trying to encourage is just try it. Don't debate it. Just try it and see what the results are. And the results will be the proof of whether or not it can work for you. And you really can say, I feel for me, initially when I made a 3rd step decision, I was deciding to make an experiment. I was deciding to proceed with steps 4 through 9, even though I had I might have had a belief in God, but I sure had no experience of God. And the only motivation was hearing you people say, if I don't do these steps, the chances are I'm going to drink again. And I did not want to drink again. I'd been sober long enough that I did not want to go back. And whenever there's any debate that takes place in my mind, my mind zips right to the hideous 4 horsemen that are mentioned at the beginning of A Vision for You. Terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. All I got to do is say those words, and I can picture myself in a fetal position, lying on the ground, weeping, wondering what has happened to my life? Why do I hate myself so much? What am I going to do? And that's what powered the decision to make an experiment of trying steps 4 through 9. Didn't mean I balked for, I couldn't come up with a resentment list for 1.5 years. That's how balky I was. And I absolutely feel today I couldn't come up with a resentment list because I didn't want to get anywhere near step 9. Anywhere near it. Laughable today, but at the time it's, my intelligent, beautiful mind working unconsciously, not consciously. No, we're not going there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to balk. We're going to plant our heels and stop and not do nothing. We're not even coming up with a resentment list. No way. Because if we do that, suck us right in, and before you know it, I'm going to be making an amend that I don't want to make. So you can discover for yourself the most important and practical thing any human being can ever learn, period. How to be in touch with God. All that is needed is the willingness to try it honestly. I don't even think you need to be honest. You just need to try it. Every person, this is a promise, every person who has done this consistently, now that's important. I don't think you have to be sincere, but whatever, they're saying that, has done this consistently and sincerely has found that it really works. Before you begin, look over these fundamental points. So we're going to have these 9 fundamental points. They are true and are based on the experience of thousands of people. Number 1. This seems like a joke. God is alive. Oh, really? God is alive. He always has been, and he always will be. Now, I'm trying hard to not say he, because I think it instantly gets us into male, female, whatever. It doesn't, it sometimes sounds a little weird, but the fact is that God is not a thing, and any words that point toward a thing, I think are misleading. God is a power. God is a power of love coupled with intelligence. God is an intelligent power. And the question is, can I access that intelligent power and bring it into my life? God knows everything too. 3, God can do anything. Now you got to remember, this is on the spiritual level. God can do anything. And the hang up for most of us is we're stuck on the human level. We're obsessed with the human level, our bodies and our minds and our emotions, our feelings about our life. 4, God can be everywhere all at the same time. This is an important difference between God and us human beings. Huh. 5, God is invisible. You can't see him or touch him, but God is here. He is with you now. He is beside you. He surrounds you. He fills the room or the whole place where you are right now. He is in you now. He is in your heart. You remember we talked about, when we were talking about Roland Hazard and Carl Jung, and how Carl Jung had this sign hanging over his office door. And the sign said in Latin that I cannot repeat. The sign said in Latin, God is present, bidden or unbidden. We have contact with God, whether we are conscious of it or not. It's why it's important that we understand we're trying to become conscious of a fundamental fact, that we are an expression of God, that we actually could not be here if we were not an expression of God. I don't know if I've told you this story, but years ago as a young man, I'm at this Zen Buddhist meditation center, and it's just like AA, it's just different. So you dig into the spiritual literature a lot, and the teacher that was there, an American man that spent 13 years in Japan studying with different masters, he would tell a story about his grand sponsor. It was his teacher's teacher. And when his teacher's teacher died, he said to the group, he said, for 40 years, I have been selling water by the banks of a river. what a joke. And what he's saying is, you know, for 40 years, I've been trying to sell you on conscious contact, and you've already got it. You're just not conscious of it. It's already part of your life. What a wonderful thing to say. At any rate, God is present, bidden or unbidden. And then you can start to see the problem is not that I have to find God. The problem is that I have to stop keeping God out. You know, God is there all the time, anxious to help. And the problem is I'm pushing God away. Why? I don't know. I think for me, a lot of it is because I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I mean, that's my defiant nature. I've worked for somebody else rarely. I have moments in my life I was working for somebody else, but most of the time I was self-employed because I couldn't stand working for anybody else. And you know, part of me now, and I can say this because today I find such enormous freedom and power in the fact that I don't have to figure out what to do. I just have to ask, and I have to be able to listen. And I think the problem for most of us, we can't listen because we got a lot going on up in here. You know, we're concerned about this and worried about that and trying to figure out what to do about so-and-so. And so our listening ability is just plain not there. And this whole pamphlet is trying to help us with our listening ability. Okay, now here's number 6. This is one that God cares very much about you. You know, you have all of these spiritual, not saints, but people, they wind up authors and so on. You know, that one of the things that they will say is God is trying to get in contact with you every bit as much as you're trying to get in contact with God. That God is coming at us all the time. You know, A Course in Miracles says, it's not many are called, but few are chosen. That's not the truth. The truth is everybody's getting called all the time, and few of us choose to pick up the phone. You know, God's ringing and ringing and ringing, and I got too much going on to talk to you right now, you know, or whatever it is. God cares very much for you. He is interested in you. He has a plan for your life. He has an answer for every need and problem you face. You know, Fred, in More About Alcoholism, quite as important was the understanding that spiritual principles would solve all my problems. Not my self-reliance. You know, this is all, for me, it's always a battle between my agnostic self-reliance and step 11 saying, on awakening, as you're thinking about your day, ask God to direct your thinking, and especially ask that your thinking be divorced from all the ego's BS of self-pity, self-delusion, and self-seeking. And I'm convinced, for me, I only have 2 alternatives. Go to my agnostic self-reliance and try to figure it out, which is the same as going on to the bitter end, trying to blot out of my mind how much my self-reliance has failed me, how I tried as hard as I could. And at age 63, I'm sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, tears flowing out of my eyes, not understanding a word you all are saying, but grooving on the spirit of the fellowship. and feeling for the first time in my life, there might be an answer here. God will tell you all that you need to know. He will not always tell you all you want to know. God will help you do anything he asks you to do. That's one of our third step promises. If I keep close to my new employer and perform his work well, I will be given everything I need. Number 9, anyone can be in touch with God anywhere at any time. This is a promise if the conditions are obeyed. Now, one of the fundamental Oxford Group principles was your job is establishing the conditions. Then God can do its work, you know. And so and that's true in our process. It shows up like, well, step 11, you establish that they're telling you how to establish the conditions under which God can work. In the evening, we review our day. And at the end of the review, we ask for corrective measures. And then we go to sleep and allow God to work on us as we sleep. Then we wake up and they have this whole thing in the morning, this whole meditative thing in the morning that we do before we start our day. And so I came across this. I just want to, so this is, I'm going to get all confused here. This is from Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers. And it's not in the study guide, and I just came across it yesterday. It's page 314. The title of the chapter is His Spiritual Quest. He got pretty far out there, let me tell you. Anyway, I just want to read this to you. I think we got time. Prayer, of course, was an important part of Dr. Bob's faith. According to so-and-so, Dr. Bob's morning devotion consisted of a short prayer, a 20-minute study of a familiar verse from the Bible, and a quiet period of waiting for directions as to where he, that day, should find use for his talent. Having heard, he would religiously go about his father's business, as he put it. Somebody else said, Doc told me that when he had an operation and wasn't sure, he would pray before he started. When I operated under those conditions, I never made a move that wasn't right. Dr. Bob never talked much about religion, but he was a very religious person. Whenever he got stuck on something, he always prayed about it. But that wasn't something he spread around. It was his own private attitude. And I'll tie into so this is the last paragraph of this chapter. He prayed not only for his own understanding, but for different groups of people who requested him to pray for them, said Bill Wilson. So this is Bill Wilson talking. I was always glad to think that I was included in those prayers, said Bill. And I sort of depended on him, Dr. Bob, to get me into heaven. Bob was far ahead of me in that sort of activity. I was always rushing around talking and organizing and teaching kindergarten. I never grew up myself. So that's Bill talking about Bob, but prayer was a big deal. Okay, if the conditions are obeyed, these are the conditions. To be quiet and still. We talk about pause. To be quiet and still, to listen, to be honest about every thought that comes out. You know, that's a challenge. How do I know whether I'm in my own self-delusion about something or I'm being honest? I don't think we even, to be as honest as you can, I guess, I would say. To test the thoughts. Now, this is key, that they're going to provide us with this test, a test of truth, to test the thoughts to be sure they come from God, and then finally to obey. Now, I've presented this, how to listen to God, a number of times, and I can tell you from previous experience how many people get hung up on this word obey. And so if you have any trouble with that word obey, I would suggest that you substitute to follow the guidance that I'm given. You know, not obey as master and servant, although if that works for you, you know, it works for me. I mean, in times it works for me. There are times well, whatever, but to obey simply means to follow the guidance. And you could also say this works with faith. You know, the book 3 times says faith without works is dead. You know, you can get this direction, and if you don't put it into action, it just doesn't mean it. It's just mental gibberish. Doesn't mean anything. The action part is where we manifest our understanding. You know, when I get confused, I love to go to the very beginning of step 10, which says continue, 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 continue. And then it says your function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. That means grow in mental understanding and grow in behavioral effectiveness. That's my primary purpose. That's the primary purpose of my life right now, is to try and to grow in understanding and effectiveness based on establishing the conditions under which I can listen to my Creator. And, you know, Emmett Fox keeps saying, you are part of God's expression. You are here to allow your Creator to express itself in your life. And, you know, and I'm going to go, well, you mean I'm supposed to be feeling restless, irritable, and discontent all the time? You know, ask yourself the question, is that what I want for my kids? You know, do I want my kids feeling restless, irritable, and discontent all the time? If I do, fine. But if I don't, I'd like my kids to enjoy their life. Then a number of spiritual works say this is why it's important to understand you are a created being and that your Creator wants only good for you. Your Creator doesn't want you restless, irritable, and discontent, dishonest, selfish, resentful, and afraid. That's not what your Creator wants for you. Anyway, so to obey, and I think that's the end of the conditions. We're going to page 2. Page 2. So with these basic elements as a background, here are specific suggestions on how to listen to God. And now we're going to get 11 suggestions. And so here's the first. Take time. Now this is part of establishing the conditions. Find some place and time where you can be alone, quiet, and undisturbed. Most people have found that the early morning is the best time. Have with you some paper and pencil or pen or pencil. Okay, that's establishing a condition. Relax too, relax. Sit in a comfortable position, consciously relax all your muscles, be loose, no hurry. Needs to be no strain during these minutes because strain is going to prevent you from being receptive. I should be saying prevent us, but prevent us from being receptive to this power of love and wisdom. Consciously relax all your muscles, be loose, no hurry, no need. There needs to be no strain during these minutes. God cannot get through to us if we are tense and anxious about later responsibilities. 3, tune in. This is going to be a hard one for most of us. Tune in. Open your heart to God, either silently or aloud. Just say to God in a natural way that you would like to find His plan for your life. You want his answer to the problem or situation that you are facing just now. Be definite and specific in your request. So one of Emmett's principles of prayer is that vague prayers bring vague results and specific prayers bring specific results. And this is really true in my experience when we're dealing with fear. And the challenge is that if we get caught up in the fear, we don't know what we're to pray for removal of. But finding the heart of your fear is a huge challenge. And I think it's one of the places where sponsors can really earn their keep, because you're sitting outside of somebody else's mind. And when they say, well, I'm traveling next week. I could be, I'm traveling a half a year from now, and I can start worrying about it, 6 months to go. But I'm traveling next week. It's a complicated trip. I'm worried about the baggage making it, and then I have all my paperwork and the plane going down and making the connection, and all these different things. And then if you're sponsoring it, okay, well, pick one of those, any one of those. Well, I'm afraid the baggage isn't going to make it. All right, well, let's get into that. What if the baggage doesn't make it? And then you start talking about, and what I found, at least for me, that I'm never afraid about what I tell you I'm afraid about. What I'm afraid about is how I'm going to react when that thing takes place, right? Because I go in, if it's severe enough, I go into a dry mouth panic, and I can feel the sky falling. So what I'm saying is, I'm not afraid of the baggage not making it or missing the connection. I'm afraid of me flipping out when that happens. Or, I'm anxious about going to a meeting. Well, why are you anxious about going to a meeting? Because I feel I'm going to be judged. Oh yeah. So what happens if you feel judged? Well, I'm gonna cop a resentment toward the person I'm feeling judged by. Well, boom. Now now I've got it, because when, what I don't want is to feel resentful, because I know it tears me up inside and ruins what could otherwise be a good situation. I'm not afraid of being judged. I'm afraid of how I react when I feel judged. Don't you judge me, whatever. So any rate, so let's see, where are we? Tune in. The more specific we can be, and I started doing this. I do like to pray on my knees at my bed once my wife is in a different part of the house. And this part about just say to God in a natural way that you would like to find his plan for your life, is just to talk to God as I would to a friend, not a bunch of these and thys and formality and, but just talking to God as a friend. I'm struggling with my relationship with my so-and-so, this person right now, and could you give me some guidance as to how I can have a kindly and tolerant view, or whatever it is. So at any rate, the idea is to be definite and specific. I've told you, I know that this was early. I was 2 years in. I've got a lot going on in the financial world, and things were coming apart, and I had serious financial insecurity, and somebody suggested that I read page 68 and that I find the prayer at the bottom. God, please remove my fear, that I be as specific as I could about it. Please remove my fear and something my direction. Why am I blanking on what it says? So we ask God to remove our fear and whatever it says. So any rate, why is my mind blanking on that? Hold on, sorry.
I think it's and direct our thinking to what God would have us be.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So that's exactly it. Please, let's see. We ask God to remove our fear and direct our attention to what God would have us be. So not what God would have us do, by the way, but what God would have us be. And that is always, for me, patient, tolerant, kind, and loving. But I have to ask for it because my human nature doesn't come by. Anyway, so I pray, God, my financial world is taking a nosedive here. And please remove my fear of financial insecurity and direct my attention to what you would have me be. And for the first time in my AA experience, I got something. And what I got was, it was just this, I was overwhelmed by this feeling of, my God is a smart ass sometimes, but this was nice. And it was like, don't you know that you can be the person that I want you to be, and you don't have to be rich to be that person. And I'm telling you, it was like revolutionary for me. It was like, huh, I don't have to be rich to be the person you want me to be. You know, I have to be rich to be the person I want me to be, but not what you want. And it was something. And it changed my view of prayer to where, you know, prayer is everything for me today. I can't say I'm living in a prayerful state all the time, but it's everything. I better get going here. Let's see. Number 4, just be still, quiet, relaxed, and open. Let your mind go loose. Let God do the talking. Thoughts, ideas, and impressions will begin to come into your mind and heart. Be alert and aware and open to every one. Then write. 5, write. Here is the important key to the whole process. Write down everything that comes into your mind, everything. Writing is simply a means of recording so that you can remember later. Don't sort out or edit your thoughts at this point. We are going to do that, but not at this point. Don't say to yourself, this thought isn't important. This is just an ordinary thought. This can't be guidance. This isn't nice. This can't be from God. This is just me thinking. Write down everything that passes through your mind, names of people, things to do, things to say, things that were wrong and need to be made right. Write down everything, good thoughts, bad thoughts. You know, the most powerful part of the 7-step prayer is, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. And then we change. We ask God to remove whatever is in the way of us being useful to God and to our fellows. Nothing to do. It doesn't say, please remove from me everything that stands in the way of my serenity. Doesn't say that. Everything, good thoughts and bad thoughts. Okay, moving to the 3rd page. Comfortable thoughts, uncomfortable thoughts, holy thoughts, unholy thoughts, sensible thoughts, crazy thoughts. Write down everything. Be honest. Write down everything. A thought comes quickly and it escapes even more quickly unless it is captured and put down. 6, test. Okay, here come the 4 absolutes, and these show up in our book a number of times. There are in the instructions for the fourth column of the resentment inventory test. When the flow of thoughts slows down, stop. Take a good look at what you have written. Not every thought we have comes from God, so we need to test our thoughts. Here is where the written record helps us to be able to look at them. A, are these thoughts completely honest, pure, unselfish, and loving? Of course not. B, are these thoughts in line with our duties to our family, to our community? C, are these thoughts in line with our understanding of the teachings found in our spiritual literature? Wow, some great ways to consider what I've written down, but you have to be not judgmental or not self-condemning if, they wind up not passing this test. 7, check. When in doubt and when it is important, what does another person who is living two-way prayer? Now, isn't that an interesting idea? Living two-way prayer. That means living it all day long. What does another person who is living two-way prayer think about this thought or action? More light comes in through 2 windows than one. Someone else who also wants God's plan for their lives can help us see more clearly. Some people suggest this was the real start of sponsorship, that this was one-on-one relationships in the Oxford groups where one person would help another look at his guidance. And any of you that appreciate the 24-hour book, all of those meditations in the 24-hour book come from a book called God Calling by 2 Listeners. And these were 2 women in Great Britain that were living this two-way prayer, and they would write down their thoughts, and then it got edited and turned into a series of daily meditations. And then Richmond Walker took those daily meditations and put them as the middle part of the 24-hour book. Starts with an AA thought, then a meditation, and then a prayer. And I'll tell you, he does a better job than they do. Every time there's been a powerful meditation, I've gone back to the original, and he does it better. I mean, to me, in terms of the language and the feeling that I get out of it. Okay, so help us to see more clearly. Talk over together what you've written. Many people do this. They tell each other what guidance has come. I mean, this is what we do in daily contact with our sponsors. Look at this. This is the secret of unity. That first tradition says personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Let's see. There are always 3 sides to every question: your side, my side, and God's side. I'm not going to say the right side. Right's a dangerous word for me. Guidance shows us which is the effective side, not who is right, but what is right. 8, obey. We talked about this before. Carry out the thoughts that have come. You will only be sure of guidance as you go through with it. A rudder will not guide a boat until the boat is moving. As you obey, very often the results will convince you that you are on the right track. So I don't know whether I've done that. I'm telling you again. So years ago, this would have been the late 90s, there was an article in Inc. magazine, which is for small business people, and it was an article about an interview with Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf, who had run Desert Storm in 1992. And the interviewer is trying to get business ideas from Stormin Norman as a result of the Iraq War and the fact that the Allied forces were so far ahead of the Iraq. I mean, they were like 2 or 3 days ahead of it. It's like playing chess and you're 3 moves ahead of the other guy and he doesn't even know it. And they're asking him about decision making. And he said something that for me has been I wasn't able to put it into play, but I understood the principle for sure. And I think that's what this is saying. A rudder will not guide a boat until the boat is moving. So you got to get moving to find out whether or not more information. Make a decision, any decision. More information will immediately begin to flow, but you've got to be able to change your mind. And that hit me because I realized I would spend all this time making a decision, and then, God damn it, I had to prove that the decision was right. I couldn't change my mind once you start moving and you're going down some sort of path and you're starting to get strong feelings that was the wrong decision. I couldn't change my mind. So this flexibility to change your mind is very important, and not to try to justify the decision. 9 blocks. What if I don't seem to get any definite thoughts? God's guidance is as freely available as the air we breathe. If I am not receiving thoughts when I listen, the fault is not God's. And then they're going to give us six possibilities of what's in the way. Usually it is because there is something I will not do, something wrong in my life I will not face and make right, a habit or indulgence I will not give up. Look at this one. Number 3, a person I will not forgive. 4, a wrong relationship in my life I will not give up. Look at 5, a restitution I will not make. Or number 6, something God has already told me to do that I will not obey. Check these points and be honest, then try listening again. 10 mistakes. Suppose I've made a mistake and done something in the name of God that isn't right. Of course, we make mistakes. We are humans with many faults. God will always honor our sincerity. God will work around and through every honest mistake we make. God will help us make it right. But remember this, sometimes when we do obey God, someone else may not like it or agree with it. So when there is opposition, it does not always mean that you have made a mistake. It can mean that the other person doesn't want to know or do what is right. And I'm just going to say again, in our work, it is not right and wrong. It's what works and what doesn't work. The only conception of God you need is what will work for you. We got to quit playing God. Why? Because it's not working. It's not bringing us what we feel like we want. It ain't right and wrong. It's working versus not working. Suppose I fail to do something I've been told and the opportunity to do it passes. There's only one thing to do, put it right with God. This is what making amends is all about. It's making it right on an internal basis. I may or may not ever see the other person involved again, but I can do that. Let's see. Tell God you're sorry, ask God to forgive you, then accept his forgiveness and begin again. God is our parent, not an impersonal calculator. He understands us far better than we do. 11, results. Here it is, the question, does it work? We never know what swimming is like until we get down into the water and try it. Never know what this is like until we sincerely try it. Every person who has tried this honestly finds that a wisdom, not their own, not coming from their human brain, comes into their minds, and that a power greater than human power begins to operate in their lives. It is an endless adventure. There is a way of life for everyone, everywhere. Anyone can be in touch with the living God anywhere, anytime, if we fulfill his conditions. When we listen, God speaks. And when we obey, God acts. This is the law of prayer. God's plan for this world goes forward through the lives of ordinary people who are willing to be governed by God. Okay, I've gone on too long, and so I'm gonna gong this gong, and Buck's gonna stop the recording, and we'll have some open discussion. And I thank you all. And next week we're gonna. I didn't get to do. Well, maybe we'll do it at the beginning next week, but we're gonna move on to step 12. And I really appreciate your attendance here. So here we go. Bye for now.